filming, recording then, Steve. Confirm that started. Okay. So, good evening and warm welcome to the July Rushcliffe Borough Council Cabinet meeting. Just a few formalities I'd just like to go through. I'd just like to remind everyone that the Cabinet meeting is actually being live streamed on YouTube, and a recording of the meeting will be available afterwards on the Council's YouTube channel. At this meeting tonight, we're going to be considering an exempt item, which is item 10 on the Moorbridge Road Industrial Unit. So for that part of the meeting, the public will be excluded, and the live stream on YouTube I will ask to end after item 9 has been concluded. In addition, I need to inform everybody on the call that under the Local Authorities, Executive Arrangements, Meetings and Access to Information, England Regulations 2012, other people may film, record, tweet or blog from this meeting, and the use of such images or sound recordings is not under the Council's control. Could I just ask all councillors who have joined the meeting to observe or ask to ensure that their microphones are muted at all times and that their video is hidden. So I'm looking across there and that seems to be the case. In addition, could I ask all participants in the meeting a reminder to ensure that the audio for the meeting is as clear as possible, that all microphones should be muted as a default setting to keep the background noise to a minimum. So could I just go through all the Cabinet members just to make sure that we can see and hear proceedings? Just starting off with Councillor Mason.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Councillor Edavine.
I'm here.
Yeah. Councillor English.
I can confirm that.
Okay, Councillor Moore.
I'm here.
And Councillor Upton.
Yes, thank you. Confirm.
We also have officers, Mrs. Marriott.
Yes, present.
Yeah, Mrs. Sewell.
Yes, present.
Mrs. Ashmore.
Yes, present.
Mrs. Whitaker.
Yes, present.
And Mrs. Tambini.
Yes, present.
Thank you. And I just remind you just to raise your hand if you would like to speak, so I can see that. When you're asked to speak, please unmute your microphone by clicking on the microphone symbol on the bottom left of the screen. And once you've spoken, please make sure you unmute your microphone again. Just in terms of voting, it'll be slightly different. On each item, I'm going to ask anybody who wishes to abstain or vote against. And so then we can then flag who has done that. If we don't get any, then we can assume then that everyone is for the motion, and that will be taken as read, and the motion will be carried. Okay, so just moving on then to item 1 on the agenda. Apologies for absence.
There were no apologies, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Declarations of interest? Not at all. Okay. I propose to accept the minutes held on the 9th of June 2020. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Mason. Anybody against? No. So we can accept those are carried.
Yeah.
Item 4, any opposition group leaders questions at all?
No, there are no questions.
Item 5, citizens questions.
Also no questions this evening, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you very much. So we can move to the key decisions then. If we go straight to item 6, crematorium. Councillor Edavine.
Thank you. Cabinet has already agreed to the acquisition of the site in Stragglethorpe with planning permission for a new crematorium. The Chief Executive was authorised to undertake the process of procurement to deliver a crematorium in line with the Council's capital programme and medium-term financial strategy. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, Cabinet is being asked to reaffirm its commitment to this project and agree the operating model it wishes to pursue. A thorough review of all the options has resulted in this recommendation for the best way to progress. And the proposed next stage is to appoint a project-led management team to move forward to design and delivery. If the recommendation is accepted, we wish to see the appointment of a contractor by September this year and expect the project to be completed and opened by spring 2022. There has been considerable background work carried out by our officers to support the demand and need for this facility. Much work has also been done on considering new technologies such as resomation and electrical cremators, both of which are more environmentally friendly, and consideration must be given to our carbon neutral target. The most favourable option for the council will be to follow an in-house operating model, and indeed feedback from residents suggests that as a trusted supplier of services, we should be the ones to operate a crematorium when it's delivered. The in-house operation also makes the most sense for financial stability for the council. We've made provision in the capital budget for this project, and despite the current financial pressures due to COVID-19, it's right that we continue to expand the services that we can offer to residents. And I have no hesitation, therefore, in proposing the recommendation as set out in paragraph 2 and repeated in paragraph 9 of the report. And I will read out, it's quite a long recommendation, so I will read it out. It is recommended that Cabinet authorises the Chief Executive to appoint a successful multidisciplinary design team to develop detailed designs for the crematorium and perform contract administration and management duties for the construction contract. B, agrees that the in-house operating model provides the best return for the council, and this should be developed working alongside the wider bereavement sector. C, asks the Chief Executive to continue investigations into new technologies to enable the delivery of a greener crematorium for the borough within the project budget. D, confirms the commitment to delivering the build of the crematorium within the capital programme and projected revenue impact. Should pre-tender build estimates be over budget, a further report will be brought back to Cabinet. And finally, E, asks the Community Scrutiny Group to review and make comment on detailed designs prior to build tenders being advertised for the construction. And I propose that recommendation.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Upton.
Thank you. As one of the adjoining ward councillors, I'm very pleased to second this report. In my opinion, there is a local need in the borough for such a facility, and I'd urge it to go ahead with all speed. We own the site, as has been said, and we have the full planning permission, so I think there is an urgency to appoint a project design and a management team. I really want to see a sustainable design with green and low carbon credentials. I think that's a given for us. And I'm persuaded that the in-house operating model with an estimated 9% return is really good value for money for us. So I'm looking forward to the target date of the opening in spring 2022 being actually delivered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think there are a number of points that come out of this. One is which it's not really mentioned in this report, of course, is that our only local current facility is Wolford Hill. And I think we've all agreed that is just not good enough for the residents of Rushcliffe. And that's what I think was the major driving force behind this project a number of years ago when we looked at this. So I'm delighted with progress in it. And I think it's absolutely right that we commit even to these very difficult financial environment we're actually working in there. Like Councillor Upton, I'm very pleased to see one of the recommendations does cover further investigations into a more green environment we can actually operate this in. And I know there's been big strides made with this, and this gives a great opportunity for us to lead the market and to set a really good example, I think, to everybody in sort of progressing this facility. So I'm really pleased it's gone forward. And I certainly support this, the recommendations out there. Any other comments? Okay, so we'll go to the vote. Anybody against or wishes to abstain on the recommendations set out by Councillor Edavine, seconded by Councillor Upton? No? Okay, we'll take that as read, and so that's passed. Okay, item 7 is the Q4 budget update. Councillor Moore.
Thank you. This is the first of 2 reports I'm going to give tonight. This report covers Q4 and the end of the year financial position for 2019-20. The draft statement of accounts has been prepared and approved. It's also been examined by corporate governance, who found no issues. It was finalised only 9 days, excuse me, it was finalised only 9 days later than usual, which is well within the statutory limits, and a credit to the staff who've been working from home. It would normally be approved with a full audit statement by now, but due to COVID restrictions, this will now be the end of November. This is a good set of accounts for last year, which have assisted greatly in overcoming some of the problems we're encountering this year. There's a lot of detail in the report. I don't intend to go into it too much, but I will identify a few of the major points. The good news is there is a net transfer to reserves of £1.35 million. The majority of this transfer comes from revenue efficiencies, income from planning, increased treasury income, car parks, and our investment properties. From all that lot I've just described, there was a total of £619,000 gain. There was also a £409,000 addition from the Notts Pool surplus, and an increase of £381,000 from renewable energy business rates. Overall, very good financial management. Now, there was an overall increase in our reserves of 1.6 million, which shows that at the end of last year, we had total reserves of 13.5 million. And from this, as we promised, as we committed to, we have created the £1 million climate change reserve. There are several small reserves which we are not planning to use, and these are now being incorporated into the organisational stability reserve as part of the council's COVID recovery strategy. These total £524,000. Included in the report are important revenue carry forward requests. These include important areas for the borough moving forward and dealing with its growth agenda, such as the Development Corporation, Shopfront and Growth Board, and loneliness funding, all important areas that we must carry on with, even though there are going to be financial difficulties this year. On the capital side, there is an underspend of capital of 19 million, which is mainly due to the postponing of our asset investment strategy, the Bingham Hub and the crematorium. These have been moved into this year. Now, item 5.2 talks about the cricket club loan repayment being delayed. But I'm pleased to say that following a meeting this week, the £55,000 from the cricket club is now being paid in September. Overall, last year's financial situation was a very good one, and I thank all officers for their hard work in enabling us to reinforce our reserves, because as you will hear in a few minutes in the next agenda item, we're going to need them. So I'm happy to now to read and move the recommendations. So the recommendations to Cabinet are: A, we note the 2019-20 revenue position and efficiencies identified in Table 1 and improve the carry forwards in Table 2. B, we approve the associated changes to earmark reserves as set out in Appendix B and recommend for full council approval the transfer of 3 reserves totalling 524,000 as stated at paragraph 4.8 to the organisational stabilisation reserve from 2021. C, we note the refold profile position on capital and approve the capital carry towards outlined in Appendix C. And we note the update on the cricket club loan in section 5. A good set of accounts for last year, and I'm very happy to recommend them. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor English.
Thank you, Ian. So in support of Councillor Moore, this is a good report and proves the financial astute of the financial management team, especially during the pressures of this difficult and unprecedented period. I'm sure Peter Linfield and the team are getting no sleep whatsoever. It's pleasing that despite the mass exodus of all the pound coins from the Rushcliffe account, the reserves have still been able to be increased, which provides a good cushion to meet any further challenges. Rushcliffe remains financially strong, which sadly cannot be said for many other councils. So credit must be given to the staff who are working from home and producing this report on time. I therefore second the recommendations as item 2 of the report A through to D to be approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to clarify, this takes up to the end of March, doesn't it, of 2020? So it only overlaps really with the pandemic by maybe half a month, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
There isn't really a true reflection then, is there really, of the impact financially within these accounts, is there? So it's really first quarter, isn't it, that we're going to see that coming into. I think we need to bear that in mind, don't we? Although obviously it's good news in terms of reserves, etc. In terms of timing, we'll see that much more those deficits, much more in the first quarter that we're actually in now, won't it? So, okay. Any other comments at all? No. Okay. So once again, with the recommendations that are set out there on page 17, which are proposed by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor English. Any abstentions or anybody against the recommendations? No. Okay. So we'll take that is carried. So on to item 8, COVID-19 update report. Councillor Moore again.
Well, this is where things change a little bit. This is the third report that I've given on the update on the position of the budget as a result of the impact of COVID-19. The projected impact on the council's financial position will continue to change depending on what happens with the virus. The releasing of lockdown measures, particularly leisure, and here I'm pleased to say that it looks as though leisure centres are going to be opening in some form from the 25th of July. And we are relying a little bit on public confidence in getting back to some normality and using council services. I will continue to report the impact going forward and present a revised budget report before council in September. We're all aware of the graveness of the situation created by the pandemic, locally and internationally, for our businesses and for our community. It's important we all to pull together to ensure Rushcliffe still remains a great place to live and work and retains its commitment to health, leisure and growth. As stated previously, in terms of the overall position, the council welcomes the additional funding from central government. What is clear, though, is that on its own, even in the short term, it will be insufficient to meet the budget shortfall. Further funding measures have been announced which will help bridge the gap, and these commented upon, particularly at paragraphs 4.1.5, namely, a further 500 million of funding to cover local authority spending pressures, co-payment mechanisms for irrecoverable sales, fees and charges income, with the government covering 75% of losses beyond 5% of planned income. There's a lot of work going into that one because it sounds complicated, and it is. And phased repayment of collection fund deficits over the next 3 years. It's unclear how the funding deficit in relation to our leisure centres will be funded. Based upon current government funding, this financial year, the budget gap is expected to be at least 1.25 million. That's more where we're predicting. But on a worst case scenario, if it comes back in the winter, it could be 2.5 million. And when we look at the council's financial strategy in September at full council, the focus will be on modelling current financial risks, which include the impact of COVID-19. I will focus on a few key messages in the report. Section 4.1 focuses on revenue budget pressures, which are particularly linked to losses in income of £860,000. Appendix B highlights 4-month losses with significant potential losses such as car parking, which has just started up again, development control, building control, community events, which again haven't started up, and loss of rental income from commercial property, as some of our tenants struggle to meet monthly rental commitments. The council is also incurring additional costs, estimated at £1.2 million for 4 months, mainly in relation to Parkwood. Additional costs, agency staffing on waste collection, additional housing accommodation to support the homeless, and extra costs incurred on managing parks and open spaces, with, much to my disappointment, having to pay for additional security enforcement resources and portable toilets. Section 4.2 relates to the leisure contract, which is being reviewed on a 3-month basis. Changes to financial projections will be reported through the council's normal financial reporting processes to corporate overview and the cabinet. The 3 key objectives are stated in paragraph 4.3, ensuring the health and well-being of the community, maximising the use of our assets and the best economic outcome for the council. As already stated, customer confidence will be the key over the next few months, but it's worth noting we remain in dialogue with Mighty over at Eastleigh to support their recovery. Interesting, paragraph 4.2 focuses on a bit of positive news in terms of the upturn in performance of Ed Walton Golf Course, which has just reopened, and long may this continue. Section 4.3 details capital programme issues, which are in essence are no different to the last time reported. In essence, the risks are threefold. I'll just remind you again. Capital receipts, both the timing of these and the amount expected, are likely to differ from what was anticipated. The money from Sharp Hill is currently delayed. B, the viability of existing projects will be reassessed. For example, the impact on the leisure contract and any potential consequences in relation to funding the Bingham Hub. And there's also some uncertainty surrounding the construction market and industry prices, but we'll have a better idea of that, of market conditions, as we receive tenders for the Bingham Leisure Hub and the crematorium. Regarding treasury issues, there's been a bit of good news there. There's been a bit of upturn in money, so that's a little bit more positive news. Section 4.5 focuses on the council tax and business rates. We're 3 months into the financial year. We can give an early view now on the impact on council tax and business rates collection. This was subject to an article in the Nottingham Post as well this week. As at the 1st of July, collection rates for council tax had reduced by 1.1%, equating to approximately £1 million of cash not reserved. I would stress there that our element of that £1 million is around £80,000. Business rates are currently largely unaffected as a result of the significant amount of reliefs granted to the retail, leisure and hospitality section. We're keen to ensure business grants have been paid in a timely manner, and I'm just updating you where we are at the moment. So it's important to see that our businesses get much needed financial resources so they can continue to exist. Council has paid out 17.6 million in grants, equating to 90.6% to over 1,500 eligible business. Phenomenal amount of hard work by the staff. Hardship fund allocations totalling 225,000 in relation to council tax support have also been made. From the 1st of June, the council launched a discretionary scheme. Since this report was written, I can confirm the council has now received 144 claims. So far, we've only paid out about 20, totaling 175,000 of the 972,000 we have available. Applications for the grant have been much lower than we anticipated, and the lack of evidence or supporting information provided by the applicants have resulted in delays in decision-making process. As it is discretionary, it has created challenges in developing both an equitable scheme and the checks and balances to deliver the scheme. However, I am pleased to announce that from tomorrow, we are relaunching the scheme, as we do want to ensure that all the resources do go to those businesses in need of funding, and as such have relaxed some of the criteria, such as reducing the proportion of property costs from 15 to 5%, the level of income reduction from 80% to 60%, and for the retail, hospitality and leisure sector, increasing the higher end at rateable value, which was currently 51,000, we're lifting it to 100,000. Details will be on the council website. We will revisit all existing applications in line with that criteria, and we have until the end of the month to pay the money about. I'm conscious that parishes are also feeling some financial stress, and I refer to paragraph 4.7, where we have offered low interest rates to parishes to demonstrate need. The council has managed its resources well. And all the while I've been involved in the council is now, and has been for a long time, with my predecessors, a very prudent council, and we're very thankful for it now. This enables the council, at least in the short term, to deal with this pan-economic crisis. But now the resilience of it is now severely tested and will require a revised medium-term financial strategy to deliver its corporate objectives. As previously stated, we will be giving a new budget report in September and a full budget later in the year. Quite a long report, but I'm very happy now to move the recommendations as in item 2, to recommend the council to note the revised financial impact of COVID-19 on the council's MTFS and the inclusion of these estimates and use of reserves and balances in the revised budget due to be taken at full council. And B, the latest contractual position and the ongoing extension to the contract variation agreement with Parkwood Leisure. Happy to recommend those recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Edavine.
Thank you. As ever, Councillor Moore has given a very detailed account of the current finances and the impact on the budget. And it's clear that there are many and varied challenges. I really do want to take my hat off to how hard the officers have worked and how well they have managed this crisis. And also Councillor Moore alluded to it, the speed with which we actually got the support that we were getting from central government and got it out to our businesses. And I know from feedback from all of our business, or some of our businesses in the borough, that they've been very impressed at how quickly we have offered and given them the support that they wanted. And I think the final thing I'd like to point out is that even though this financial position is not what we would like, we are still relatively strong, and we as a council retain ambition to move our projects forward wherever possible. So I have no hesitation in seconding the recommendation.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Any other comments at all? Yeah, I think this is more realism as opposed to the budget of Q4 review, because this obviously reflects the true income, and I would just like to pass on, Mr Whitaker, the thanks to all your staff. So I know the incredible pressures that the finance team have been on, and also echo Councillor Edavine's comments about the businesses. I think there are 1,500 businesses out there who are very grateful that we managed to get the cash out there very, very quickly. And as businesses, cash was king. It really was, and I think we stepped up really well. I think disappointed a bit that some of our partners haven't stepped up, as mentioned in the report, but we'll keep on trying to support our high streets, supporting our residents and supporting our businesses through this time. And we hope that hopefully, we also hope that in our communication with government that we will see some funding coming to us from this, because it's absolutely key, and we're committed that we want to retain our ambitions for our capital projects, but also we actually want to make sure that we provide the very best frontline services that we're renowned for. So I think that's really important that we do that. Leisure obviously is absolutely key. As Councillor Moore said, on the 25th of July, Parkwood will be opening, I think, most of their locations. I think possibly one may not open, but that is really important. But it's a big challenge, not just for them, a challenge for us as well. And as I say, we've got to support them, and hopefully they can get a sustainable model, and we can start to see the footfall increase and get that usage up. So, okay, so taking the item proposed then by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Edavine on page 37. Anybody against or anybody to abstain? No. So we'll take that motion as carried and move on then to item 9, the Rushcliffe Equality Scheme, for Councillor Mason.
Thank you. Well, this is the Rushcliffe Equality Scheme, and really this is about the process that it will be going through in the near future. The present scheme is from 2016 to 2020, so as has happened in the past, it's time to review the scheme. It has always been regularly reviewed. It is also a good time to look at new data gathered by different organisations and bodies, public bodies, during and after the pandemic. There's been many issues highlighted over the previous, and there will be over the future months. There are many strands as well to the from age, disability, pregnancy and maternity, to gender and sexual orientation, but also race, colour, religion or nationality. Most of these are protected already by law, but we have to have the document putting it very clearly. The equality scheme includes our employees as well as residents who wish to access our services in an equitable manner. It is also important that all councillors are aware of all the strands of this document so that they can feed into it in the scrutiny process, which they will be a part of. So I would like to put forward and say, I've just lost it for a minute, here we go, the recommendations for the Cabinet. The recommendation is A, supports the comprehensive review of the 2016-2020 equality scheme, asks the corporate overview group to programme member involvement and input into the scrutiny calendar, and receives a future report on a new and revised equality scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder?
We do. Thank you. Well, as a good employer, Rushcliffe Borough Council regularly reviews its policies, and the equality scheme is now due for its review by the thorough scrutiny of the corporate overview group, which I fully endorse, as I'm sure all council and officers will be keen to support and engage with. All diversity strands are already covered in the document, but bringing it to scrutiny for a review can only enhance and bring the document up to date. It's not an option not to update this important policy. So therefore, I have no hesitation in recommending item 2 of the report, A, B and C are approved. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Any other comments? No, so I look forward to receiving the outcomes of the reports over the next few months once it's been through scrutiny. So anybody to abstain or object to the recommendations as set out by Councillor Mason, seconded by Councillor English? No. Okay, we'll take that then as carried. At this stage, we're going to move into a special part of the meeting. So I think we now need to stop the recording. If we could, then please, Stephen, confirm it's stopped.